I just want to say it's unfortunate that we weren't able to meet in class this morning with the huge snow and ice out there. The school decided to go on a delayed opening. So, just going to give you a short little lesson for today, just to say that we kind of met. It's tough to meet remotely or anything like that. I figured I'd let you guys sleep in a little bit due to the fact that we have two. We probably could have gone Zoom, but I honestly can't stand Zoom, so it's better off I just kind of give you this file and you can watch it. Just make sure you watch it before our Tuesday class. So we're going to be talking about the organizational uh, structure of law enforcement. We have previously spoke about the history. We spoke about what we see in the modern law enforcement agencies out there. We talked about local, we talked about state, we talked about federal. So now let's delve into the organization. Within it, we are a very paramilitary organization. We wear uniforms like the military. We have a rank structure like the military. We have a command structure. It's very hierarchical, which means that you answer to the individuals who are superior officers to you, and those superior officers above you can give you orders, and you must follow them. Hence, the authoritarian type of aspect of law enforcement. Just like the military, you follow orders or you get disciplined. Now, the one difference here, and we'll talk about, is that law enforcement is allowed on occasion to use discretion. In regards to what we carry, what we use, again, very militaristic. We have weapons, we can take freedoms, we have certain types of equipment, we can use force. All these things generally can be done by the military as well. There is a government program where used military equipment comes over to law enforcement. We're allowed to procure it and use it. Some of this military equipment that we can use is ammunition, firearms, tactical vests, uh, personnel carriers, larger motor vehicles, stuff like that. Stuff that the military is no longer using that can be helpful for law enforcement. To give you an example, the village that I worked with was right on the water. We were always prone to flooding. We were able to procure from the military program of used equipment a 6x6 truck. This allowed us to drive that truck into floodwaters and evacuate people. When Hurricane Sandy hit some years ago, this was very, very helpful in helping our community and our civilians get out from the floodwaters that they were under. Um, the look of us looking military can be controversial. The belief is that um, the fact that law enforcement looking more and more like the military um, is not a good thing for civilians to see, as we are not supposed to be that occupying force. We are supposed to help and protect the citizens, and military is generally looked at as occupying forces. They're there to fight enemies, especially foreign enemies. They generally do not serve the citizens like law enforcement does, and that's a major difference. Where law enforcement is there to serve the citizens, and the military, of course, is to fight foreign enemies. Uh, the military doesn't provide certain services to citizens, while law enforcement generally does. While our ultimate thing is to enforce the law, we provide many other different services that the government provides to our populace in order for them to get help. The military is not allowed to perform law enforcement duties on United States soil unless the Passaconamtitas Act is waived by our executive and congressional legislative branches. So therefore, while they may assist law enforcement, which is what you're kind of seeing down on the border right now. They're generally not allowed to enforce regular civilian law. Uh, Police departments, law enforcement officers are generally constrained by the same laws that citizens have to cover, are covered by. So here in New York State, it's the New York State penal law. Uh, if a police officer violates the New York State penal law, they can be arrested and charged under that law just like any other civilian. Military personnel are generally not charged under civilian law. They are charged under the Uniform Military Code of Justice. And as I said, law enforcement is generally allowed to use discretion in certain cases. Again, they might be restrained by law or their organizational command, but generally they are allowed to use discretion in certain cases. If anybody has been pulled over and not received a summons, that is the police officer um, uh, allowing his ability or her ability to use discretion in that case by not giving you a summons. Some criticisms. Well, law enforcement looking more and more like the military can definitely create more of that us versus them attitude. That's not saying that that isn't already there. It definitely just moves law enforcement further away from the civilian population that they are attempting to protect. Uh, Generally, again, militaries go to war, go to battle, and law enforcement should never be going to war on its citizens that they're trying to protect. The civilians, so that war on crime should really not be used. Personally, the authoritarian style could be contrary to individual police officers' beliefs. Right? We tend to believe that everyone should have a say. That's that democratic principle that we have here, and in law enforcement, as is in the military. Well, you really don't get a say unless you are one of those superior officers. And therefore, the inability to have a proper say in how things go, may lead to low morale, may lead you not liking your actual occupation, uh, that you're not being looked at as an individual with something to be able to be given to the organization. Generally, in law enforcement, again, if you're not the ones who are allowed to make the decisions, you won't be asked for your opinion. Again, so those are just some different types of criticisms. Now, law enforcement is just like any other huge bureaucracy within our society. You see this with large corporations, you see this with other governmental agencies, and that bureaucracy, excuse me, is just an organization attempting to perform and achieve a common goal. But there's a lot of things going on, and you see here different many tasks. And there are a lot of different tasks within the police department that everybody is doing separately. But again, their common goal is to prevent crime, right? And some of these different tasks we group together in certain types of divisions. We kind of tend to call them bureaus or units. And we have the fact that we have Patrol Bureau, which is the bureau that you're going to see kind of out there performing, the patrol services, answering 911 calls, taking you to the hospital, responding to family disputes, making the majority of arrests out there. You'll also have Detective Bureau or units. You'll have Internal Affairs bureaus. You'll have organized crime, narcotics, gang. You'll have all these different types of divisions in regards to trying to perform this common goal of, again, preventing crime. Uh, those divisions will have a clear division of labor. There will be a structured pyramid, right? We talked about the hierarchical type of things. Everything is going to go top down. Everyone's going to know what they have to do. Everything is going to be performed at its lowest rank possible. If a police officer is able to perform it, a police officer is going to do it. If a lieutenant is the only one of the lowest rank possible that can perform it, the lieutenant is going to have to do it. It's always going to be delegated to the lowest rank. And that's like pretty much any um, type of organization where the lowest person that is able to do something is going to perform that task. Within the bureaucracy, there's going to be a clear chain of command. You're going to know who is in charge of you. You're going to know that the sergeant is always going to be in charge of police officers. You're going to know lieutenant's going to be in charge of sergeants who will be in charge of police officers. Lieutenant will always be in charge of sergeants and police officers. So there's going to be a clear structure on who you are. In regards to unity, you're going to know who you have to report to. You're going to know who your sergeant is. You're going to know who your lieutenant is. You're going to know who your captain is. There's going to be an understanding and the ability of you knowing who. What I don't have here is that there's also a span of control in regards to a supervisor, a sergeant, not being in control of about 20, 25 police officers. Usually the best number is approximately 8 to 10. In this way, the supervisor, the sergeant in this case, can supervise that number of individuals. The more individuals that are added to that, the less likely that he or she is going to be able to supervise them properly. There's going to be written rules for uniformity. Yes, there's a lot of rules and regulations. If anybody has a parent who is a New York City police officer, ask them how thick their patrol guide is, if they have a hard copy. It may all be digital now on the computer, but back when I was there, um, we all had hard copies, we all had loose leaf books, and they were approximately 4 to 5 inches thick. And you had to know every single thing that you were responsible for depending upon your rank. If you're a police officer, you had to know everything a police officer is responsible for. If you were a sergeant, you had to know everything a sergeant and a police officer is responsible for. If you're a lieutenant, again, what you were responsible for your rank, as well as knowing what the sergeant's supposed to do and what the police officer's supposed to do. So, as you go up in rank, the more things you have to know. And that's the reason why the information needs to flow up and down. So, if a police officer has something, they're going to tell the sergeant will tell the lieutenant, all the way up to the individual running the police department or the precinct or whoever is that top rank that needs to know. And if anything comes in, well, again, that's going to go. Again, that top down structure is going to go all the way down to the lowest rank possible who has to do it. Hopefully, your career path will move upward. Most career paths tend to either stay at the same rank or will move upward. There's two ways to move upward. That is in regards to the supervisory structure or the detective structure. Supervisor, again, you can take promotional exams to become a sergeant, to become a lieutenant, to become a captain. Detective-wise, you can be appointed as a detective, and that rank structure may be detective third degree, detective second degree, and with the highest rank structure, detective first degree. It's extremely difficult to get demoted. There are rules and laws and regulations in regards to demoting police officers, and the fact is that generally does not get done um, lightly or a lot. And finally, again, some problems within the police department bureaucracy. We are very slow to adapt. We're very rigid. The individuals who are deciding um, what type of organization we're going to be have been in the job a very long time. They have done things a certain way. It takes us very long in regards to technology, changing the way we respond to things, because these officers have done things a long way for a certain amount of time, and they have done it their way, and sometimes they're like, well, if it was good for me, it's good for them. But we have to adapt quickly. There's a different type of crime out there today. Technology is a big factor, and we have to adapt much more quickly. We cannot be inflexible as we once were. So these are some of the things that we have to do better. Just like any organization, any type of bureaucracy, any type of corporation, there can be communication breakdowns. Again, in regards to that top bottom, you have that telephone kind of aspect, play on things where I may tell you something, and by the time it gets down to the lowest person, it may have changed. So there can be some communication breakdown. Sometimes you'll have officers of the same rank, let's say two sergeants, tell you two separate different things, and you don't know who to listen to or what to do. And in that case, my advice is obviously always do what your sergeant, who's in charge of you, again, that clear chain of command, that unity, always do what he or she tells you. If there are two sergeants who are not in charge of you, well, you're going to just have to pick one, and then, hopefully the other sergeant that you did not listen to will understand, and you could always tell them to speak to the other sergeant, but that may or may not help you. Uh, just like human nature, a lot of people are very inward looking, self serving, self protective. You want to get recognition for what you do. This may be the wrong job for you because basically, if you do things great, if you do things right, don't expect that pat on the back. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not going to be rewarded for it. Um, if you screw up, yeah, you're going to be called on the carpet. You're going to be disciplined. Something's going to happen to you. So, the pats on the back, not so much. The slap in the head, more so than that. In regards to some people not being able to use their talents that they may have brought with them into law enforcement. Maybe you have a teaching degree. Maybe you flew helicopters in, the military. Maybe you're a computer programmer. Maybe you have a special talent. Don't expect to get rewarded for that. It may happen. It may help. But a lot of times, sometimes, you may spend your entire career on patrol. Um, just because you did something previously or have a special skill doesn't mean that the law enforcement fraternity is going to use it. Maybe your job where you work doesn't have the ability to use your talent, or maybe it does, and someone with an uncle or a parent or a family friend is in the right place at the right time and is able to work their magic and get you into a special detail or special unit. And in the law enforcement circles, we call them hooks, where you're hooked up into a um, unit that you want to get, and you may not have the talent that someone else is. So therefore, your appointment to that unit will be based on who you know and not what you've done or what you can do. And that's just something that happens very, very frequently within law enforcement. Um, so that's where we're going to end today. On Tuesday, we'll finish this up and we'll also talk in depth with the Garner assignment. So make sure everyone has that done. Hopefully, you have it done by today, as it was already due by the time this is going to be posted. And we'll see everybody on Tuesday.